the county governments, then at that level, the level of discussions when they are going for concurrence would be even better, so that we move forward and have these enacted in place, become a law, and we move forward to the election. But as far as the side shows are concerned, it's part of the game, but we can always improve.
Okay. Speaking of sideshows, well, have you ever been in the opposition, Kasim? Because in Parliament, it's all to do with numerical strength. Being in the opposition, it's a dogfight, it seems, yeah?
No, in terms, of course, I'm a member of NC, so I'm in the opposition. Yes. I'm not in the government. And that is the position. I sit on the left-hand side of the speaker. And I've always said this before. How much I would wish that members of parliament, I included, that will be debating issues on merit, will be debating the importance of that clause, not because of whether you are on the opposition side or you are on the government side, whether you are on this divide or on that divide. You see, one would really be debating based on probably the representation, how he feels, how his people or her people wants in that debate. But unfortunately, most of the debates where they come into the floor of the House, especially these political matters, people fail to reason, you know. I personally take exception on when a member says that I support this without reasoning.
Or without thinking.
Without thinking, I will
that.
really take that exception. Whether he's supporting what I'm supporting or not, to me, that is not the way to go, that will really support or oppose something without thinking.
Maybe they're towing the party line, who knows?
But that's what I'm saying. That is what I'm saying. Even when you are towing the party line, it should be a reasoned position. It should be a position that you can defend, that, yes, my party says this, and I'm saying also this because of A, B, C, D. That is the way it should go.
Okay.
But you can see those who are opposing, were even opposing on the basis that it is unconstitutional. You know, when you are making a bill, you are making a law, of course, unless it really goes into the core of a Bill of Rights or whatever, is this something that you can always align with the Constitution? You see, it's not, if it is not aligned to the Constitution, you align it during the debate and in amendment, not to say we cannot debate it because it is unconstitutional. And then you go ahead and propose amendments in the Constitution. You know, so you can see people are just, in fact, to me,
so
not debate, but
tactics,
just wasting time. Just wasting time. But thank God, it's over. Thank God I'm now going back to my constituency to dispense with the other important matters. But my plea will always be, can we debate matters on merit? You see.
All right.
Yeah, period.
Well, we'll get to talk more about what featured prominently in terms of the contentious issues around the Political Parties Amendment Bill 2021. As we've just been informed, they finalized with that particular bill. Of course, we'll see more debate, robust debate at the Senate. But even as we do that, let's just highlight the story that aired just yesterday in terms of the National Assembly resuming debate on the contentious Political Parties Amendment Bill in a stormy session pitting President Uhuru Kenyatta and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's troops against Deputy President William Ruto's allies on the legislation seen as critical to the upcoming general election. And as our senior political affairs reporter Murimi Mwangi now tells us, the Uhuru Raila camp managed to outsmart Ruto's allies as the House approved majority amendments critical to the handshake team, while overwhelmingly shutting down proposals fronted by the Ruto camp.
Reconvening for the third time during the Christmas recess for the now all too contentious Political Parties Amendment Bill 2021.
Madam Speaker, you are very biased.
Members of the National Assembly trooped to the chambers, split between President Uhuru Kenyatta and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's camp on one side, against Deputy President William Ruto's troops, who from the onset have been opposed to the bill.
Which was deleting.
And first on the chaotic dock was Ruto right-hand man and Garissa Township Member of Parliament Aden Duale, seeking to amend the bill by deleting a clause that set the deadline for coalition formation at 6 months before the general election, The amendment was subjected to a vote.
Will as many as of that opinion say aye? And as many as of a contrary opinion say nay.
An acclamation vote that instantly stirred a standoff in the chambers, prompting the House to proceed to division to allow individual members to electronically take a vote.
I announce the results that the yes have 1 over votes, which is giving us 44.83%, and the nays have 128, giving us 55.17%. So total, the nays have it.
An early win for the Kenyatta Odinga team that paved way for House Majority Leader Amos Kimunya.
I beg to move that clause 8B.
To, amid the chaos in the House, move another amendment to adjust the deadline for coalition formation from the 6 months suggested by the bill to just 120 days, roughly translating to 4 months before the election.
Honorable Chair, I beg to move that clause 8B of the bill be amended in the proposed proviso by deleting the words 6 months and substituting thereof the words 120 days.
As many as our vice say aye. And as many as our contrary opinion say nay. This is very clear to me that the ayes have it.
The passage of the Kimunya amendment, starring instant threats of the Ruto camp's move to court to overturn the law if enacted.
We had members who were unable to vote because their cards had problems that they required to be sorted out before we proceed forward.
Reasons will prevail, and we still have the requisite numbers to make sure that this amendments bill goes through as required.
So it is better you first go to the elections and gauge our parties, the strength of the parties, especially in parliament.
4 months is a reasonable time for political parties to put their house in order.
The House also rejected an amendment by Nambale legislator Sakwa Bunyasi that sought to restrict coalition political parties to only field candidates for presidential election. And there's a bill that affects counties, since it has implications on the election of MCAs, senators and governors. The legislation still has to proceed to the Senate for concurrence. And with no end in sight to disputes on this bill, the contentious legislation certainly is headed for further face-off, as key political players weigh their options in the face of the new amendments. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News, in Parliament.
Well, that's just a highlight by Murimi Mwangi on some of the proposals that sailed through on the floor of the House. Remember, some of them being to compel a coalition political party to deposit an agreement with the Register of Political Parties 4 months to the general election. That was one of the contentious issues, but it was endorsed on the floor of the House. And I'd like us to talk about the timelines right now. Perhaps evaluating a 4 months truly is ample time for coalition parties to synergize in terms of preparing themselves. Okango, briefly, I'll start with you. What say you about the timeline? Is this workable?
Thank you, Jesse. First of all, political parties have been in existence. We are not registering a new party. And therefore, the parties that are existing, this is going to be coalition of the willing. And I strongly believe that is possible. I would also want to re-emphasize what our principals yesterday said, led by Gideon Moi, Moses Wetangula, Kalonzo Musyoka, and Musalia Mudavadi. They supported this bill fully. And they did give their promise that this bill is good, and the members of parliament, however, should exercise caution so that the amendments are not far overreaching to the political parties' functions and effects. And to that extent, it is possible to have coalition in place at least 4 months before election. And should this go through all the way in the concurrence of the Senate, then it means that political parties have got up to April 9th this year to ensure that they put their house in order and form their coalition. If we are talking about today, you can tell that the only coalition that shall have met, even that has met now and is putting the house in order, is Oka. Okay. You know, so for us, we believe that everything is in place. If you look at the other side of Azimio, they're also doing their thing. I'm sure they'll comply by that. The only person that probably could be worried about this is the other gentleman on the other side. So I think there's no problem with that. Initially, the proposal on the bill was 6 months. Yeah. And you remember this was one of the controversial issues that the two the two teams were fighting about. When members agreed and it was passed on the amendment that we have it at 4 months, then again it was after consultation. So the members of parliament agreed to pass it at that level at 4 months. Okay. I am confident that with the organization that we have seen before, with political parties that believe that they want to form the next government, and the political parties that believe that coalition is the way to go, because today we can confidently say that there's no one single party that can have absolute majority in either of the houses, given the nature of our politics. Why am I saying that? Okay. I'm saying that because we have seen instances where a majority party has failed regional representations, where in a region they believe that they are not represented in that government. They believe that their interest is not taken care of. So the emergence of multi-party democracy has also come with the emergence of coalition building. And in coalition building, you now take care of the interest of regions in a government through participating in its formation. So within these 4 months, we are going to see a lot of things that will happen. The first thing that we'll see, Jesse, we'll see small parties benefiting. And that is a win for most of the small parties, because previously it was a coalition of the big boys. This time, we're going to see the parties that are considered small but big in ideas also coming together with the big boys and forming a formidable coalition that is going to strengthen service delivery to the people of Kenya. Okay. So I strongly believe it is possible.
Yeah, so I mean, being a legislator and comparing to the previous law, which had set the timeline, was it 3 months to the general election in terms of forming and all this? What say you? Because especially your side, ANC and extensively Oka, sort of felt like they're being targeted by the 6 months proposal. So do you feel a little bit safer with the 4 month proposal?
Just it's not that, one, I would really take exception on the narrative that the debate or the bill was between Jubilee and the other side, that is UDA. I don't think that is right. I would want to give an insight into this bill. This bill, so to speak, and nobody can deny it, was originated by the One Kenya Alliance. Take this to the bank. The reason being the experiences we had under the previous election, when we supported, when we were in NASA, supported a single presidential candidate, but under ODM. So this bill essentially originated from the One Kenya Alliance, and you can take this to the bank. And way forward, our position in the original bill, if you want me to tell you, was 3 months to the election. Okay. Of course, later on, when the bill was printed from the committee, we were shocked to see that it was put to 6 months. And the original amendment to this bill was done by Honorable Ayub Savula, which took it back to the 3 months. But of course, with the leader of majority, who is the mover of that bill, consensus had to be got. Yeah. Initially, they had moved from 6 to 5. But finally, we said 3, 5, let's go to 4. At the middle, and that is how we supported it. Okay. It's unfortunate that when you support something on the floor of the House, you are told you have either supported Azimio or you've voted with UDA. Remember, even on the 3 months, which we had put as an amendment, people still you, even in the media, still took it that it is the deputy president proposal that he wants 3 months. So that when you are talking about the 3 months, like now, One Kenya is supporting UDA.
Yes.
I think this is a very wrong narrative. And for the reason, I'm not quite sure why you are pushing this narrative as the media and any other person that you are either supporting Azimio or you are supporting the other side. I think going forward, we need to come out of this. So that was the genesis of the 3 months and finally ending up with 4 months.
Okay.
The first amendment was done by Ayu Savula, who is in NC, who is in the One Kenya Alliance. So it's not a question of whether now we are comfortable or not. It's a question of whether it's going to work for everybody. And I think that is the best position. It is going to work for everybody. I'm not convinced up to where I am right now that UDA will never have coalitions. And I think for the last few weeks, you've heard them say, well, we've never said we'll never form coalitions. Though initially, they were really hard on that point. Because that is the reality on the ground. That is the reality on the ground. Never again shall we have a one-party state. Never again shall we have a single party really dominating the politics of this country. Remember, even in the last election, when Jubilee came in, they had said they are going to come up with one national party and Jubilee. But what happened in the run-up to the general election? We still had other parties, especially from the northern part of Kenya, which came in, you see, with their own parties, and still they agreed. They became part of Jubilee. So I think it's high time, Kenyans, we really go for the hard facts. That going forward, this works for everybody.
Do you believe this will sanitize the politics of coalitions within the country?
The main important thing about this bill, other important thing about this bill, was about the funding, you see, the political parties fund, which of course has been contentious. Initially, that area was quite grey, and that's why I was telling you from the last general election, where even me, while I was NC, my vote went for ODM, you see. Now, and you can see what came out of that later on. They were to decide whether to distribute that money, because it is in their coffer as ODM, not as NASA that time. And that is what it was trying to cure. And I'm saying this is good for everybody.
All right.
Even for those who are opposing. I think they were opposing just for the sake of appearing that they are against a particular function. But deep down, they know that it is also going to work well for everybody when it comes to that.
Now, speaking of the benefits, Okango, as I cross over to you, you said that small parties may benefit, especially those that are strong in ideologies. But I'm looking at a headline here, and we'll definitely get to deliberate with this, or Kasim as well, in terms of the bill paving way for Azimio to field joint candidates. And I had one of the proposals by Sakwa Bunyasi, though it was shot down. He was sort of proposing that these coalition parties only field a presidential candidate, and then in terms of these other positions, they let individual parties field, but it was shot down. Now, what does this necessarily mean for a party like KANU that is within OCA? Will OCA field a candidate, let's say, in Nairobi, a governor's position, as well as KANU fielding a candidate in that very same position? How will this work out?
Jesse, the political parties are formed to capture power. If you read the bill, the wording in the bill is coalition agreement. And even the sharing of the political parties fund, based on the proportional representation in terms of numbers, and all the 15%, the 70, up to the 10, is based on the numbers that you have. Okay? Now, in the agreement, the reason why it's called an agreement is because the willing come together and agree on how they are going to field in different areas. That agreement shall be deposited with the registrar of political parties. If you look at Bunyasi's amendment, the proposal was such that it only allows the coalition to field a presidential candidate. An issue that was with NASA then, if you remember. While Section 10 of the Principal Act, as it is today, allows for post and pre, but it doesn't really specify on which ticket within that coalition that the candidate will run on. So they can decide to run on one of the major parties or one of the parties. Today, the introduction of coalition political party puts it explicitly that that coalition party can field a candidate on the coalition political party. Now, back to what you have asked.
Yeah.
The constituent parties in that coalition will have to sign an agreement within or among themselves and agree on their areas of strength, and whichever way they look at it, they will participate. The reason why I say the political parties stand to benefit is because when you are in an agreement, in coalition, there's something you bring on board. Kano brings something on board, NC brings something on board, Wiper brings something on board. And if you are contributing in terms of strength and capacity, then it is possible that within your agreement, there's everything, something for everyone. That is possible. Number two, the issue of political parties, as I said earlier, is to capture power and to have representation. And if you look at, again, the legislation on political parties in Article 92, again, it is explicit. So for me, I look at it as, again, because most of the political parties that will be involved in coalition will have to bring something on board in terms of representation. Okay. And that can be agreed. As it is today, it is not there. And it can only be agreed under that umbrella called coalition political party. You cannot agree outside that. Lastly, just so you know, as political parties, the issue has always been representation. The issue has always been legislation. We have seen instances where in the House, and Mheshimiwa here will tell you, an agenda is pushed based on how you are mobilized and from what faction. And most of the members of parliament sometimes forget that they are legislating nationally, particularly the National Assembly. So the emergence of coalition party that forms government must be careful to ensure that they deliver what they have promised or they have committed in their manifesto. That ties them in the House to start having the idea that they must deliver to the people of Kenya nationally as a coalition, because if they fail together. You see, today, we have a House that some people have decided that they are not in the ruling party while they are on a ticket that is a ruling party. And they are sabotaging every aspect of development in this country because they believe that there's nothing binding them. So in a coalition, there are ways of getting to a coalition political party, there are ways of exiting. And if that is put in law, then it is possible. The gentleman on the other side was telling the public the other day that he believes in trust. Himself, today, that it is because of that trust that he is exiting the National Party that initially was a coalition from 2013. So how come we are double speaking? So I believe that these parties, all of them, big, small, will have an opportunity to offer something in that coalition political party, and in offering that, they'll benefit more than if they're out.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Perhaps the same question, and briefly rather, because he's really expounded on it. Will ANC compete against Oka, let's say in Matuga? Do you envision such a scenario?
Well, the position about the coalition party, which I personally had to vote against Bunyasi's amendment, though he's a member, one of our senior members of ANC. And that's why I say from where I sit, I vote based on my conscience. I don't vote because the party has said or whatever. I have to be convinced. So honestly, I voted against Bunyasi's amendment. And this is the reason. It's very simple, you know. There is where you can compete amongst yourselves and the seat is yours within the coalition, you see. In areas where you are so sure that if ANC, KANU, Ford Kenya, and the other coalition, the other parties come in, we compete amongst yourselves. In fact, we will be looking at that one like a nomination process. Whoever will come out will be a member of One Kenya Alliance. Then we don't need to have an OKA candidate. But in a situation where you know that if you compete, then you are going to lose that seat to another coalition, then you are better off having nominations amongst yourself and fronting one candidate.
Okay.
Initially, you will front a candidate based on one of the constituent political parties. Now, with this bill going through, you are going to front that candidate under the coalition party, for which case you will retain your seat. And that's why I'm saying this is an amendment which benefits any political party. Why it's just being looked at is favoring OKA or it's favoring Azimio. I think this is totally misunderstanding of this bill. It's going to favor all the coalitions that there will be in. And you can take this to the bank.
Okay.
Nobody will approach 9th of August without forming coalitions. That is the important part of it. So it is upon now for the coalitions actually to gauge their strength properly. If you mislead yourself, even in the last general election, Jesse, Jubilee would complain that they lost some of the seats because they competed amongst themselves. They never came together. Of course, us in NASA, we also lost some of the seats, and I think we always, Langata here is a very good example on how NASA lost because of the way they competed amongst themselves.
Internal competition.
Internal competition.
Okay.
So this is a win-win situation, Jesse. I don't know why people are taking it to be very contentious and that it's to favor somebody else. It will favor everybody who will get their acts right.
Okay, since we're talking about the contentious issues, let's talk about maintaining discipline within these political vehicles. And I'll start with you, Kasim, because there was a showdown on the floor of the House when it came to the ejection of erratic members from political parties. And just listening to some of the what the members of parliament were saying, I beg the question, are we really instilling party discipline, or is it party dictatorship in our democratic vehicles through the law? How exactly do you look at it? And what proposals were passed, by the way?
You see, a political party is like, I like the analogy of football. I don't know which team you support, but I like the analogy of football, where even us, Kenyans here, some of us support this team, could be Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City, whatever. And locally here, we also support different teams within our local league here. So it is the same, and nobody forces you. I'm yet to see somebody who has said, I'm being forced to support Man City because my father or my wife or my husband said, I must support, you see. Yeah, it's totally voluntary. So going to the political parties, it is the same thing. I'll be on NC ticket by choice. If I don't feel to be on NC, nobody will force me. And this constitution has even given us a better way of handling it. If you think none of the parties, if you think all the parties don't suit you in terms of their manifestos, policies, you go independent, isn't it? So this issue that there can be a party dictatorship, I think one will it will be voluntary, subjecting yourself into that dictatorship that you are talking about. Otherwise, it is so obvious. You can move out, join in another party, of course with consequences. You can go independent, of course with its own consequences. So why people don't want to ascribe to a particular norms which are set before you go in? You know that these are the rules and regulations. Let me give you another example. I'm a golfer myself, and so other people are. I hope you are also one. Basically, there is only one rule internationally, that you cannot take your phone inside a clubhouse, isn't it? Of course, communication is enshrined in the Constitution, freedom of speech, freedom of association. But in a clubhouse, the rules are you cannot take your phone. I've never seen anybody going to court complaining that the golf rules are curtailing freedom of speech, because you're not forced to join. In fact, you pay, and you pay handsomely to join that club, knowing that the rules are that you'll never take your phone inside the club. So it is the same thing, you know. It is the same thing. And for sure, even for those who are thinking that you don't need any discipline, you can talk anyhow, you can behave anyhow, you can move anyhow, the moment they form their own political parties, that is the time they realize that certainly some form of discipline is required. And this happens everywhere, even in the parliament. Of course, when you are told you need to be in a tie and a coat, personally, I want to put it clearly, I'm not a tie person.
Clearly,
from cost, I'm not a tie person.
Right.
But for the mere fact that I have to go to the house and legislate, then I have to put
rules.
It. That is it's just as simple as that, Jesse.
Okay. So, which side of the divide do you sit on this?
I also think, based on what you're asking, I think the issue of dealing with the errand members is on at what point are they deemed to have resigned from their parties? And I think that's what you are asking, if you ask me. You see, Jesse, we have seen instances of indiscipline in the political parties, where members elected on that ticket decide that they are going to support their ideologies and help in the formation of another political party. Today we are seeing that, the red versus the yellow. You can see it. However, how do you ensure that you deal with that as a party? That legislation and that amendment is in this bill.
Okay.
The law says that you must exhaust internal dispute resolution mechanisms and give opportunity for the accused to defend themselves through fair hearing.
And it drags.
And it drags.
Yes.
So in this bill, if you look at the proposal, again, it also protects the same individuals that have been accused so that they, first of all, exhaust internal mechanisms before they are deemed to have resigned. The Principal Act as it is today says that if you participate in the formation of another party, or you are a member of another party, you participate in the promotion, in the selling of the idea of another party, you shall have been deemed to have resigned. Those issues, when they go before the political party dispute tribunal, they take ages. And that has made it easy for the culprits to find their way in to their party back, and they continue wrecking the party. This legislation is very good. But just to add something again, we have seen instances where political parties must communicate. How do they communicate? Particularly the source of funding. Currently, the Principal Act requires that you publish in 2 local or widely circulated local dailies. Today, with the proposal of having a website, you can actually do one and put a website. So, in my view again, I maintain, and just like the OCA principle said yesterday, that this party is, these proposals of amendment or this act will now strengthen political parties. And it is good for every political party, not some, because it is going to make work easy and it's going to ensure that in terms of service delivery, as a function of or a role of political parties, we shall deliver to the people of Kenya.
Speaking of delivering, and since we're talking about erratic members, being the deputy party of ANC, I have to put you on the spot. Just recently during the Buhungu meeting, we had, is it an ANC member sort of pledge allegiance to the Azimio la Umoja movement while still mentioning he's ANC. He's still in ANC, lakini na support Baba. Is this an erratic member? Would you define this as an erratic member?
I've analyzed what he said. I want to be very clear on this matter. I'm the deputy party leader of NC. That was Honorable Ayub Savula, who is, I've mentioned earlier, one of our senior members in NC. And I've also analyzed the current status of the political temperatures and versus what we are calling the Azimio la Umoja. You know, Azimio la Umoja right now is not a political party. Even if we are to subject what Honorable Savula talked about, Azimio la Umoja right now is not a political party. So we cannot really gauge him against whether he crossed over or not. And remember, he even emphasized on the podium that he is an ANC member. I want you to be very clear on this. If you have the clip, I think it is very fresh. He stated that he is. Now, the question will be, did he say or he didn't say? And then the next question will be, did he mean or he didn't mean? Remember, after that, he went on to say so many other things about it, including yesterday, when we were in the floor of the House, including yesterday when he was to have... So from where I sit right now, I think Ayub Savula acted politically on the podium. I think you remember last time we had one governor who even declared himself an acting president of this country.
Okay.
He literally went away with it. So for now, for now, with the kind of political hit that he is, I think the time ahead of us will be the defining moments to show those who are still in their political parties, to show which coalition they are in. Remember, I don't think there is anywhere, as far as I remember, as an NC member and the deputy party leader, where we've said we cannot work with any coalition, including the Azimio la Umoja.
Okay.
You know, so for me, I think it is out there in the public domain. Savula still remains an NC member. We've not ruled out any coalition.
Okay.
And I hope sooner or later, but now it's going to be later if the bill passes, we have 4 up to 9th of April to actually be pressed, to actually make known our presidential candidate. And
well, your principles mentioned February, so we hope it's sooner rather than later. But as we finalize on that issue, being a member of ANC, do you think it'll now be easier if this legislation becomes law? Will it be easier for political parties to sort of reel in on these erratic members? Because as he's mentioned, it takes time, and I'm pretty sure you've definitely started discipline proceedings against certain members and they still haven't been expelled.
Exactly, exactly. With the passage of this bill, I'm not really convinced that it's going to be any easier than the way it is. And this is the reason. You know, it still goes up to the courts. If you read this bill, it still goes to the courts. And you know very well the courts have their own challenges. We have several cases, not only on matters political, but on very straightforward matters, be it corruption, be it which have been there, you know, for ages and ages. So, well, it will be easier now for the party to give its verdict. It will be easier now for the registrar of the political parties to pronounce itself. But when it goes to the tribunal, of course, even initially they had a time frame, which was again easier, but it is again open when it goes to the court. So I don't know at what point I think it's coming to me now, whether we would have been in order to have given a time limit on this matter also when it reaches the court. Perhaps. Otherwise, the way it is, we might not be out of the woods yet. But to me, the position would have been to give everything a time from, so this matter is concluded. Somebody either goes back to the electorate. If he's a nominated member, of course, he loses the seat, the next person, and then we will really have serious political hygiene and people will really be clear on their mandate.
As it is now, it is 90 days. The political party tribunal must dispense that matter within 90 days. And again, if you look at 90 days, it's enough time. A lot of times, those who go to the tribunal get a reprieve. They get temporary orders for some time within those 90 days. So I think in their wisdom, the draft of this bill, they thought that that is adequate time to deal with that fact at that level, in my view.
Okay, that's really proper. So we'll continue discussing about some of these contentious issues that sort of stood out on the floor of the House. But even as we do that, remember when it comes to the office of the Registrar of Political Parties and her involvement in choosing when it comes to party nominations or whatnot. We don't want overlapping of mandate between IEBC and the Office of Registrar of Political Parties. So we'll be back talking about that, and perhaps Article 88 is clear on the role of IEBC. So that and much more featuring prominently right after the break. You're watching Morning Prime. When we come back, more on that particular amendment bill 2021 on the political parties. Equally, other stories covered on today's dailies. Stay with us.
KTN News. Get the whole story.
In Nairobi CBD, then I hope you're not missing out on the free Wi-Fi from AdSimu. Ukiwa pale